don't say picking on your thoughts, which is a negative word, but just to think about what you say and think about the issues that we're presenting today, but also promoting the community and working in the community to create lasting peace, to find solutions in our communities to issues that affect them. And why we just wanted to have this panel is also your thoughts on what our students have presented and what you think could be done, needs to be done, and probably a way forward. So I'm going to give each one of you about 5 minutes to just tell us what your thoughts are on this, and we will move on from there. I will start with Alan.
Hello, testing. Everybody hear me? Thumbs up, beautiful. Thank you. So, I think the brief is talk very shortly around social cohesion, the concept of community engagement. I guess just starting with the macro, first of all, when I say starting with the macro, rely on the research of IEP, and maybe I'll talk about the meso and micro based on some personal experience. So, what we know that positive peace and looking at positive peace, which correlate with a range of other social indicators, is that higher positive peace countries experience greater social cohesion. Probably no surprises there, that makes sense. Higher positive peace countries experience have better indicators across a range of social indicators, including social cohesion, as well as perform better against a range of financial indicators, perform better environmentally and more resilient. The concepts that we were discussing last week. So, but when we unpack that a bit more, there's an interesting aspect to it. And looking at positive peace, and you may recall, those who weren't present last week, that positive peace has improved over the last decade, over the last 12 years. Positive peace has improved by 2% globally over the last 12 years, which is a positive indicator. But when you start to unpack that a little bit more, you may remember that positive peace was broken up into those 3 domains of attitudes, institutions, and structures. And positive peace has improved because of the improvement in the structures domain and the slight improvement with the institutions domain. So it's those 2 domains and the indicators that make up those domains that have driven that increase in positive peace. What is really concerning when you break it down into that domain level is the domain of attitudes has actually declined over the last decade or over the last 12 years. So that is concerning, and it's steadily dropped away. I know my hand was going up there. That's because an IEP chart showed a bigger number of less people. So attitudes, the score for attitudes globally has increased. And so when you think about it as a global watcher, it's actually not really surprising. You think about the last decade plus, and you think about the change in the political landscape in the last decade. We've seen the rise of populist politics, the rise of divisive politics, and we see some of those same attitudes at the community level. So it's hardly surprising when you sort of think about it as a global watcher that attitudes have declined. So that's concerning. And when you think about positive peace and indicators, that's attitude indicators that contribute to social cohesion. So that's thinking about this concept of social cohesion from a macro level. I just realised you gave me 5 minutes, so I probably shouldn't talk too much on that. Certainly, and I was going to touch on the concept of community engagement, and it really there, not as explicit. That's taking that sort of that concept of co-design and giving community agency is really inherent in the three projects that we heard from today, which was really pleasing to hear. Certainly, I'm sure most of you are aware that prior to being peace building, my work was in policing. Ended my career as a senior police officer with trying to create community engagement as a core approach to how police approach their business. And historically, community engagement with the policing service and other services has tended to be a nice add-on. It's not the real work of policing, that's something we do if we've got time. Or, there's that community engagement guy or girl, or we've got that team with that community engagement. So the change that I was trying to drive on behalf of the organisation, the policing organisation I was working for, was to bring that concept of community engagement, or community agency, into process. So it was a systemic part of how police officers, professional police officers, approach their craft. I suggest there's a long way to go there globally when we look at policing. I think that's probably my 5 minutes done. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this panel.
Thank you so much, Charlie. I like the idea of creating community engagement as a core concept, and also the issue of social cohesion. And I know that this is something we struggle with in Africa, which is part of our history, of course, but also something that we have probably determinedly said we will keep pushing under the carpet. We don't want to talk about these things. The trouble with that, of course, is then we find ourselves in more and more spaces of tension instead of spaces where cohesion can be built. But thanks a lot for that thought. I'll now move on to Rotarian and Kutu, just to hear your thoughts on this. Community engagement, our social initiatives, and of course the future of peace building in Africa. From what we've had here this morning and afternoon, but also what you as a Rotarian know and know that you are definitely able to do.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak about community engagement. I think community engagement is core in in everything that we have to do. Peace is not something that you give other people. It is something that we have to work to. It's something that we have to find for themselves, and our role is only to guide them and start the dialogue around peace. But when I come to the social initiatives, I think I was very impressed with the work that's being done, first of all by all the Peace Fellows, but particularly the social inclusion. I think for me, social inclusion is a very important thing, and it starts with attitude, which you mentioned, that we find that one of the things that brings around conflict, disturbances in communities, are the negative attitudes that people come with. For example, towards I recently did a study on employment for people with disabilities, and the biggest barrier started with the attitude of people thinking that people with disabilities can't do anything. That was the biggest attitude, and bringing them into a space and not knowing that actually what can we do with them, and that would cause a lot of trouble. The other, and I think Paul mentioned it again, was the issue of language for refugees, the issue of qualifications, that we have an open policy in our country that allows refugees to come and find work, but you find that when you go to many institutions, they don't recognize the credentials, the academic certificates from other countries. They don't take the trouble. So if you've been in a francophone country and you come to Uganda and present your papers, they'll just put them aside. They're like, what is this? We can't equate it. Of course they can, if they tried. But I see that attitude has been a big, big, big barrier to inclusion, and in that then causes or destabilizes cohesion. So those are my initial thoughts at this point.
Thank you. And maybe now that you think about attitude, social inclusion is, I know that we have policies about affirmative action and so much more in this country. Do you think there are ways in which we could work on this attitude, and how probably would an organization like Rotary International help us toward achieving positive attitude in building more socially inclusive communities?
Policies are there. Implementing them and operationalizing them is where the challenge is. And it requires leadership. It requires being very intentional about starting something. And starting something involves working with the people that it affects the most. And so, for example, if you're going to work on disability issues, start by working with people with disabilities. As they rightfully say, nothing for us without us. So bring them into your organization, and then they'll show you exactly what can be done. But it really takes being intentional about it. And Rotary International has a diversity, equity, and inclusive policy, and has recently put in place a committee which is supposed to break down for people. Because sometimes people think diversity, equity, and inclusivity is just about gender. Gender is easy. Have some women, have some men, and you think you've done diversity. But it's far bigger than that. And so they're breaking it down in 2 steps, saying this is what it involves. And you need to put it in your monitoring frameworks, so that at the end of the year you can tick and say, how much did we do on this? How much did we do of this? It's not just numbers. It's also about creating a truly inclusive environment. And that involves many, many things. But to put it in place, you have to put it in your program, in your activities, and most especially in your budget. Because most of the time, there is a cost element to it. And so you have to go all the way, starting from the leadership, but right down to the monitoring frameworks and to the budgets to get it done.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I now sense 2 things here. Charlie talks about social cohesion, and you talk about social inclusion. And what I see from the 2 of you is the idea that communities need to work together. Communities need to find spaces where they're not just simply forced, but they can organically work together in order to build lasting peace in their communities, but also probably have a space where they can think through conversations around peace and peace-building processes and so much more. I'd really like to thank you for those thoughts on that. Ivan, you're a lawyer, so you know how policies work. I've just been reading your article, Final Assault on Coffee Farming, and and you know the storm in this country currently regarding coffee, and how my very poor country relative down in western Uganda will think about such things. But I know that these are storms that we talk about, and yet these are things that we need to resolve as a country, as a nation, but also as a continent. From an economic and legal point of view and perspective, how do you think we can work with peace initiatives to build lasting peace in not just Uganda, not just in our local communities, but also in Africa as a continent?
Before you have something bad, you might not appreciate how bad that is. But when you experience it, then it gives you direction. Today, we can never have peace in Africa when we do not address the basic needs of life. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Things as simple as food, shelter. Those, even when they are simple, they are important. Whereas there might not be war or fear of any sort of violence, when I am broke and I don't have money to even afford a meal for my family, I cannot be peaceful. And it takes me to the idea that I was writing about. I was actually talking about economics. I was talking about livelihood. I was talking about an empowered society. Why I say that it has a lot to do with leadership. When the leadership deliberately abuses public trust and dismantles systems that empower the society economically, they are making small bricks towards a very unpeaceful society. I was in the discussion, one of the discussions about that article you've talked about, the final assault on coffee. We were discussing it, and I gave a trend of events from 1986 on how deliberately a coffee farmer has been frustrated. And to me it is personal because I've been in position to run an education through coffee. My grandfather was a coffee trader. My mother is a coffee farmer. I'm a son of a coffee farmer, proudly so. But someone then brought an argument that whereas the collapse coffee-related cooperatives, milk-related, dairy-related cooperatives were encouraged. And they were funded by far. So I do not want to agree with the notion my friend was advancing, because I don't think it takes us any further or closer to solving the solution. But those are seeds of violence. Those are seeds of violence. Therefore, when we talk about attitudes, the attitude I have with those who I think are attacking the core of my livelihood and survival cannot be a smooth one, definitely. And most so when they respond with arrogancy of state power and state machinery, it cannot be good. When individual benefit in form of corruption erodes and collapses institutions, then that is a threat to positive peace and peace building. When these things happen, they anger people, and the pile of events and the pile of activities in form of regressive policies and collapse of institutions, coupled with the attitude that is negative, that is the actual threat to positive peace. I am aware that there is a group that contacted me and says, Ivan, we the sons and daughters of coffee farmers, can we mobilize? I want to tell you, by today morning, there was a suit filed in court, in the High Court, Civil Division, challenging the agreement that intended literally to monopolize coffee business in Uganda. And we have a law in place that literally requires that my mother, who is a smallholder farmer, who is a small-scale farmer, has a license to plant what she has been planting literally for the rest of her life. That cannot be peace building. So laws and policies are critical to peace building. It must be deliberate. When Rwanda got out of the genocide, and they realized that one of the issues, the critical issues, was the identity-based nationalism of a Hutu Tutsi. They removed that. They removed that deliberately. When Mwalimu Nyerere down here in Tanzania aspired to form a nation that is not tribal, it was deliberate with the Ujamaa policy, regardless of its failings. But it was a deliberate move to create a nation. And today, apart from the events in 70s where Amin attacked cross-border Kagera, we have wars in Uganda. We've had wars. We never had a single peaceful transition of power. And our worries and fear today remain. That's negative peace. But a nation has transition that even when the head of state passes on, they are sure that the vice president will take the mantle without much chaos or without any problem. Ladies and gentlemen and others, this is important. Policies, laws are critical. They shape attitudes, but also they have capacity to build or break societies. So every time there is a policy, this is the mode I use, and you can use it as well. Every time there is a policy that government comes with, or a local government comes with, or the international community comes with, what I do is I first read the history before I read what it is. I first understand the history. Then when I read it, it imputes motive. And when it imputes motive, then I have an opinion of whether that is actually pro-people or anti-people, or it's selfish or unselfish. So, whereas others look at policies just the way they are, it is not the case. So, we must, and when it comes to, for example, Amina's social initiative, I would advise and I would ask that we expand the scope of the reach. Okay, the women and the girls are getting skills to do public speaking, to help them enter into civil service, public service, and all that. And then what? We might not have the answers now, but having that end game helps out. And then what? Today, my brother, if the social initiative you have about support services for the disabled, in the next 10 years, all 5 years, can we say, because this one received this service, we have been in position to sit at the table so that we can also take care of our own? My friend, if it is about peace, peaceful reporting, isn't it done in a way that actually massages the status quo? Because also that can be a problem. I am a writer myself. And at times you need to tell people point blank for it to get off your heart and for you to forge a way forward. I know the balance can be delicate sometimes, but at times it's necessary. We have a saying here that ow'ebbango bw'otamuwemuku yateyebika. Like at times you need to tell someone off so that they can cover themselves. So being deliberate and hitting the issue when it is hot actually, to me, can be a tool for peace building and having sustainable peace, which is, in a way, positive peace. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Ivan. Thank you so much. And finally, Patience presented something that reminds me a lot of how I teach news writing in my class and the shock value of news. And the famous thing that we were taught right in primary school, that no news is good news. And my students know I use this a lot. When you read the dailies in this country, it's about rape, it's about murder, it's about violence, our headlines can be interesting. And then I mean, even as I was being taught news writing as a student, I noticed that there's a lot of violence in the press, there's a lot of violence in social media. And as part of your project, I saw that you are interested in creating peaceful reporting, where people are willing to understand the meaning of, like Charlie talked about, social cohesion, and why we need to work with communities to have this as something that is part and parcel of who we are as human beings, but also to celebrate our humanity, and so much more involved in there. My question to you then is, looking at what you have done and what you've been able to achieve, even from your initiative and engaging communities, how do people respond to whatever it is you're doing? And when I talk about people, I'm talking about the communities. I'm now not talking about the people that you've trained, their attitude toward any kind of positive reporting. And if whatever that attitude is, how do you as a practitioner then respond to them? But also, how are you able to work with them as communities and grassroots people and not the trained people to have ways in which they can actually build more peaceful communities? And that is something from your social initiative, but also something from you as a practitioner in the media world.
Thank you so much. I think our social change initiative, they've really helped us to build the foundation to positive peace. I would want to look at Ronald's social change initiative. It was addressing the issues of inclusion, and Paul was talking about youth empowerment. Amina was on women empowerment, but at the same time on decision making, empowering them to take decisions. And I think with those, we managed to recognize the needs and aspirations of our communities. And when we're here, we're able to identify the problems that our communities are facing and how we can come in now as peace builders to create that lasting to peace. But going back to my social change initiative in Zimbabwe, issues to do with human rights are a very sensitive issue. They are hot cake. You cannot just come in and start to say, I want to train on peace journalism or conflict-sensitive reporting. When I first approached, they told me that there's no conflict here in Zimbabwe. So what is that you want to address really with your social change initiative, your project? So it took a lot of convincing the government itself for them to allow me, because at times if we don't go without their blessing, you are easily branded a regime change person. And the moment you are branded that, you cannot do anything in the country. Whatever project you're going to bring in, it's already, they have castigated it. The state media are sure they won't attend, whereas these are our target, this was my target audience, the journalists themselves. So there was need to tread very carefully on that, and using Rotary clubs themselves, because they are a respected institution, Rotary International. So I managed to approach government first before going to the communities to get their consent. When I saw that I was making inroads, That is when I then started talking about this initiative. The communities, they really appreciate the initiative, the project, and they were very supportive, by the way. But also, they did not understand why the timing of the initiative. Because usually you get non-governmental organizations, people coming with projects towards election because they think they are a money-generating vehicle. So they would question a lot of things about the project. So why these journalists, why this area? So you try to engage them, working with them, listening even to their needs, because they have different needs as well as communities. The way they want the media to cover their issues in the communities. It's another issue that they raise, that we would want to see more of development projects in our communities. Why is it not coming out in the media? So all this was a process to get the communities on board to understand what is it that you want to do and what's the way forward, where are we going. And I liked Ivan's point on institutions. You realize that no matter how good your community engagement project is, institutions can really spoil it. The policies. In Zimbabwe, it's very difficult for you to congregate people without a police clearance. And when you apply for that police clearance, they want to understand your motive. And to them, anything foreign has that potential to topple government or challenge government. So all these are the challenges that you encounter as you're trying to do community projects, not only for peace journalism, but for any project you want to do, you have to be accountable to government. Currently, if you're an NGO, you need to report 3 times a week to government to say, tomorrow we're going to meet so and so, and we are going to do 1, 2, 3 things. So these are some of the issues which are interfering in our community engagement projects, the laws and policies. There's an act of Parliament, the PVO Act. Funders don't want to know, to be said that the funding is coming from this international organization. So all this is done to trace where is your money coming from and what is the intention of that money. And I believe it's already causing some fear within organizations, international organizations, to say we cannot channel our money towards Zimbabwe because we'll go through so much scrutiny concerning the solutions that we want to bring into our country. And lastly, I would want to say what I noticed as I implemented the social change initiative was the need to have localized knowledge during the project. And the deliberate dialogue which was there to say, let's sit down, let's talk about the issues which are affecting our country. Let's address the underlying causes of conflict. We know this is what is causing this. How then do we address this issue? In a frank way, Ivan talked about truth-telling, which is a component of peace journalism. We need to tell each other the truth, to say this is the problem. We call a spade a spade. We cannot go on merry-go-round trying to ice a rotten cake. This is what's causing the problems in the country. And right now, our inflation rate, when I left Zimbabwe, bread had gone to $2 from $1. So already this is 100% inflation. And we know where it is coming from. But why are we not, as journalists, pointing out these issues in our writings? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. And thanks to all of you for this. I like the idea of localized knowledge. I'm one of those people very much careful about lots of things in our cultures and how we think about cultural practices and so much more. And I have kept talking about communities having to talk about their practices and not we coming from out here to tell them this is wrong, but allowing them to speak about these practices so that they can find a way forward with that. But thank you very much. Thanks to the four of you for patience, Ivan, Anne, and Charlie. Thank you for being part of this panel and for your responses. It gives us great joy to know that these things can actually work, and if we intentionally and deliberately work toward peace building in our communities, we definitely, most definitely, can achieve everlasting peace in our communities, in our nations, and on the face of the earth. Thank you very much. I would like you to take your leave from the stage, except Charlie. And I would also like to recognize the presence of the senior commandant of the police senior command at Boevaja. This is senior staff college. I don't know. Yes, CP Kafiru, we are glad to see you here. Moses, thank you very much for joining us on this occasion. Would like to give another round of applause to our panelists, and thank you very much, the four of you, for being part of this. Would like to conclude the day, and with something that comes from the Institute of Economics and Peace. And Charlie Allen is going to lead us in something titled The Peace Index and Positive Peace Philosophy. And Charlie, you have about 30 to 40 minutes to have your presentation, and we're glad to welcome you. Thank you very much.
Well, good afternoon again, everybody. I was given the topic of the state of global peace and positive peace philosophy. Well, I can't even say it, philosophy. I'm very conscious looking around the room that probably 95% of the people in the room are Rotary Peace Fellows, either from Cohort 1 or Cohort 3, so I feel like I'm delivering old news, but I acknowledge we've got some new faces in the room, which is delightful. Nice to have the pleasance of senior police here, and as well as Rotary. So I'm going to go a little bit off topic a bit, if I may, because there's a few things that came up in this morning's discussion that I was pretty keen to return to. Yes, I'm here because of my role with the Institute for Economics and Peace as the Partnerships Director. And as most of you are aware, the Institute for Economics and Peace have a partnership with Makerere University and bring in the positive peace content into the program. The Institute for Economics and Peace also has a partnership with Rotary, and that's a Rotary. That partnership is coming up. We're about to sign our third MOU, so we're about to go into our seventh year in partnership with Rotary. So I'd just like to touch on that because I think it really helps given some of the discussions that came through this morning. Also, on top of that, I'm a Rotary Peace Fellow, so I guess I have had that pathway of doing Rotary Peace Fellowship and then taking what I've learnt into practice through a social initiative and making it sustainable within my practice. And finally, I'm a Rotarian. I think there's about 5% of Rotary Peace Fellows go on to become Rotarians, so I'm one of those 5%. As a Rotary Peace Fellow, I have delivered presentations, more often than not pitching projects to Rotary clubs. I stopped counting after 50. And I think if there's one thing I'd like to share about pitching to Rotary clubs is prepare to be disappointed, because you've got to find the right person first of all, and you've got to find the right club. So you might not get it first time round, but once you get a deeper understanding of Rotary and able to navigate Rotary a little better, that becomes far easier. That was sort of what fueled my question about, wow, would it be helpful to arm Peace Fellows with some of that knowledge about negotiating Rotary? And the past Rotary International Vice President made a really good point about Rotary's global grant system and the relatively small portion of that big spend every year that is spent on spent on peace projects, or the peace and conflict area of prevention, to use Rotary's language. I'm going to revoice his secret in that Rotary want to increase that spend into the peace and conflict area of prevention. So there's opportunity there for us as Peace Fellows and for us as Rotarians. There was another thing I wanted to touch on, and when I finished my Peace Fellowship, the keynote presentation was from the past Rotary International President, Bishai Radikul. May he rest in peace. Or he's a Buddhist, so I hope he's enjoying his next life. But Bishai addressed us in our Capstone Week, or our graduation week as we identified it. And he talked about, well, what is Rotary's expectation of return on investment from Rotary Peace Fellows? And Bishai said this. He said that Rotary's expectation is that the return on investment is that you solve at least one conflict. Remembering that Rotary have invested a lot in us as Peace Fellows, and his expectation was that we resolve at least one conflict. I have a lot of respect for past Rotary International President Bishai, but I would suggest as Rotary Peace Fellows, we can do so much more. And I think that was demonstrated by the presentations this morning. I think we are in the position to, first of all, have a reach to thousands, if not tens of thousands of people. And you heard from those projects this morning, there was that first project, but then there was that ongoing thinking about how to make that sustainable, increasing that reach to from potentially thousands to tens of thousands. So I think we can do a whole lot more than what Bishai requested. If you think about that, there's coming up to some 2,000 Rotary Peace Fellows globally. If each Rotary Peace Fellow was to reach 10,000 people, whether that's directly or indirectly, that's a significant reach, and a reach that is potentially a game changer. And by a game changer, coming back to IAP, we often think, what is the game changers that can shift that global data on peace? And I would suggest to you, with the reach that we as Rotary Peace Fellows can achieve, can be a game changer. I'm just looking at Helen because I've gone totally off brief, and she's okay with it, I think. Okay. And the other thing I wanted to share, which before I just touch briefly on the state of global peace, is as a Rotary Peace Fellow, what was my approach? And I've enjoyed lots of conversations with Cohort 3 this week, and certainly my approach was to try to grab every opportunity, wherever that came from. So whether it was within the organisation I was working within, whether it was with other Rotary Peace Fellows who are reaching out and looking for assistance with projects, or within Rotary, and just looking to grab every opportunity that I could pursue that was within my capacity and capability. What I liked about the examples this morning, that the projects undertaken by the Cohort 3 members was within their capacity and capability. Okay. All right. So, as most of you are aware here, the Institute for Economics and Peace is an independent think tank that's in the business of measuring peace. And we measure peace, and not only measure peace, but measure its economic benefit as well as the economic impact of violence, so we can have an influence, whether that's influence around policy decisions or an influence around resourcing decisions. Many of you are aware of the reports that we produce. The most known report being the Global Peace Index, and last week we touched also on the Global Terrorism Index and the Ecological Threat Register. These reports are brought out annually, and we've been doing this work for some 15 years. So not only does it create a viewpoint of peace at a point in time when the report's released, but it also gives us data, longitudinal data, to look back over a decade and a half. And that trend data can be cut and diced in a whole lot of ways, whether that's looking at the global level, looking at a regional level, or looking at a national level, or even looking at a subnational level. That's what the world looks like according to the Global Peace Index. When you put the world into a heat map, you can see the red, the least peaceful countries, through to the green being the most peace countries. Does anybody remember the most peaceful country? It's got to be somebody. The most peaceful country. Iceland. You got it. And the least peaceful country? Maybe next report. No, this is the Global Peace Index. You're right if you're talking about the Positive Peace Report, but in the Global Peace Index, the least peaceful country? Afghanistan, you got it. Okay, so that's what the globe looks like. Okay. All right, has the world become more peaceful or has the world become less peaceful in the last year? You probably don't need our reports to realise that our peace has declined between 2020 and 2021. We don't like to predict what's going to be the outcome the following year, but I strongly suspect in 2022 that decline is going to continue. So peace declined 0.07% in between 21 and 22. You might look at that and think, such a small number, that's not statistically relevant. But remember, this is talking about global averages, and that is significant. And what is significant? It's the 9th deterioration in peace that we've experienced in 13 years. 87 countries became more peaceful. 73 countries become less peaceful. Which is interesting, given that the net sum was that peacefulness declined. So the countries that deteriorated at a far greater rate than those war countries that become more peaceful. The improvements were driven by changes in ongoing conflict. I suspect that indicator will change over the next 12 months. Was also driven by the improvements in internal conflict and also improvements in the terrorism impact. And you may remember from the Global Terrorism Report that terrorism has continued to trend on the improvement since 2014, which was the height of the ISIS crisis. The deteriorations were driven by militarisation. So militarisation had been improving for quite a period of time, and it's interesting that in the COVID era, militarisation has increased, as has MILEX, or military expenditure, and a range of indicators across the safety and security domain. So there's the highlights. I think it's funny to call them highlights. It's more like lowlights, really. So there's the indicators that had the largest deteriorations in the 2021 GPI, Global Peace Index. And I'm conscious I'm talking about 2021 data. The 2022 Global Peace Index will be released in June 2020. So about 2 months' time we'll be releasing the next report. We saw the largest deteriorations in violent demonstrations, and that was quite remarkable. and driven by a range of different global issues. Black Lives Matter campaign, anti-COVID laws campaigns, anti-lockdown campaigns, and also political-led violent demonstrations as well. Political instability also fell, and militarisation, as I've already mentioned. Indicators that improve, deaths from internal conflict, the numbers of and intensity of internal conflicts, and deaths from terrorism. As I said before, terrorism, or the impact of terrorism, continues to improve from that 2014 height. I threw up the sub-Saharan African data just to get a sense of how the sub-Saharan African countries fare when rated against each other. So that regional ranking, you can see there's 44 countries in this version of sub-Saharan African countries, with Mauritius as the most peaceful, South Sudan the least peaceful in the region. And you can see the overall ranking, so that's its overall score against the 163 countries globally in that final column. And the sub-Saharan African countries range from Mauritius at 28 in its overall ranking, through to South Sudan at, can't see, it's behind a thing, 160, this is testing me, isn't it? Can't see it here either. 160, anyway, but South Sudan is in the bottom 10, so I think it's 157 from recollection. Couldn't be 157 because that's DRC. It must be 159. And you can see when you look at the bottom 10, the least peaceful countries on the globe, there's an over-representation of sub-Saharan African countries. Okay. Okay, so remembering that what we looked at was a snapshot in time. Now, what did peace look like when we ruled a line through the data in 2021? So this is sort of looking at it a little bit differently, looking at trends over a period of time, and the time period here is that period from 2008 to 2021. And over that period, the overall global picture is a decline in peacefulness by 2%. And you can see there, still, there were more countries became more peaceful, less countries become less peaceful, but the overall impact was a decline in peacefulness by 2%. And there's that trend line. You can see it, it's going up, so a higher number is less peaceful, and that trend line is trending in the wrong direction since that 2008 period, with only 3 years where the globe has experienced improvements in peacefulness. When you sort of break it down to domains, you can see that decline in peacefulness has been driven by overall by the ongoing conflict or conflict domain, with militarisation trending away over that period of time, except in recent times where it's kicked back up. And I did say before that it's interesting that in COVID era, militarisation has kicked back up, and the safety security domain has trended fairly flat over that period since 2008. So you can start to break this down even further, and you can see there the trend in battlefield deaths, which is one of the indicators in the ongoing conflict domain, as well as the total conflicts. You can see that total conflicts has dropped away, as has battlefield deaths. Okay. I talked about this a bit last week because I think this is a really worrying trend in the global data, and we talk about it as that rising inequity in peacefulness, with the least peaceful countries becoming less peaceful, and the more peaceful countries becoming more peaceful, but the least peaceful countries doing it at a larger rate, which is concerning. I think I use the analogy of the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. The same is true of peace. So COVID-19 and peace, we're often asked, well, what is the impact of COVID on peacefulness? And there's just a few high-level observations around the impact of COVID. Early days in COVID, we saw levels of violence dropped away, but they have now returned. They've returned to the pre-COVID levels. Similarly with civil unrest. Civil unrest dropped away early days in COVID, but now has increased with a 10% increase in violent demonstrations since, or increase in violent demonstrations has really kicked up later in the COVID period. There's a large number of COVID-related violent incidents, some 5,000, and we've seen political instability deteriorate in 46 countries. And that's understandable. COVID is exacerbating already existing tensions. And it's a little bit unclear what's going to happen with the longer-term impact of indicators like homicide and violent crimes. We're seeing changes in the crime types, with a decline, particularly early days in COVID, a decline in street-related crimes, but an increase in crimes in private places. And the most predominantly what I'm talking about there is domestic violence. Another indicator is unsurprisingly, mental health indicators have declined in the COVID period, including suicides. That's what we're seeing about where these COVID-related violent incidents are happening. The deeper the colour, the more the COVID-related violent incidents. All this slide is just talking about is very quickly is talking about where is it that we're seeing the greater financial resilience, and the top line of this slide is really the higher positive peace countries is where we're seeing the greater resilience and economic recovery post-COVID, which is unsurprising. And with positive peace being an indicator of resilience, meaning that higher positive peace countries are better prepared, they're better able to respond and better able to recover from shocks, with COVID being a significant global shock. Okay, and you may remember this data for those who were with us last week, as we're looking at the economic impact of violence, and that incredible number of nearly $15 trillion being the global annual economic impact, economic cost of violence, which is 11.6 of the global GDP, or nearly $2,000 for every person on the planet. I spent a bit of time talking about, if we could save just 10% of that, we could save $1.5 trillion annually. That far outstrips the global ODA, and we could do so much with if we could shave 10% off that economic impact of violence. Okay, so I'm not going to dive too deep back into positive peace, because I think what I picked up to this morning was listening to the presentations, how the concepts of positive peace were really grasped and drawn into the projects. May not necessarily been explicit, but the things I heard from all the projects is, first of all, as I mentioned before, I heard that the concept of giving agency to the project participants was one of the considerations. So that idea of self-determined projects by the participants. The other thing I heard from all of the projects was that they were strengths-based. It was all about working within the system where you can have influence, and how do you strengthen that social system that you're working in and have an influence within. And what I was doing while the presenters were presenting was listening to hear which were the positive peace pillars that were being hit. Amina, with her project looking at youth leadership and youth peace leadership, clearly high levels of human capital was really one of the main pillars that was informing her project. As was well-functioning governance, and that came out into her presentation. Clearly, equitable distribution with resources was another pillar that was hit, as was respecting the rights of the others. With Ronald's project, once again, it was very much strengths-based and self-determined by the participants. Well, I listened to Ronald's presentation. I was very able to pick off all of the 8 pillars in your project. So I really liked it. There was a whole lot of elements in your project that sort of grabbed hold of all of those pillars of positive peace. Similarly with Paul's project in the DRC, the first one I ticked off was high levels of human capital, and then the next one I heard was free flow of information. And what I liked, was how do you make this change sustainable, and that idea of sound business environment, so microfinance and skills acquisition to give young people in the area who's working the capacity to sustain themselves. And once again with Patience Project, it was clearly free flow of information up front, but there was a whole lot of other pillars hanging off that free flow of information, high levels of human capital, well-functioning government, and lower levels of corruption. So I think I will finish there, remembering that the benefits of positive peace is that higher positive peace countries perform and higher positive peace communities perform better across a range of indicators, both financial, social, environmental, and are more resilient. Thank you for listening, and thank you for listening once again for those who have heard some of this material before. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shirley Allen, for carrying us through the benefits of positive peace and the peace philosophy and the Institute of Economics and Peace Work. Friends, we've come to the close of our day 1, and I would like to congratulate all those that have successfully presented. I have to assure you that your certificates are already signed for the 4, not for everyone. I have the honor to invite DGE Honorable Mike Sebalu to say a word as we close. For Botswana, I have the good news. Your consular has confirmed attending your presentation. As well as Nigeria, your ambassador has confirmed attending your presentation tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Helen. Dear participants, facilitators, and those that have made the presentations through the day. Good afternoon to you all. Yeah, like I've been introduced, I'm Mike Kennedy Sebalu, and I'm a district governor-elect for Rotary District 9213. And just last Saturday, I was installed as governor, so officially I got the chain, and I'll be starting my tour of duty officially with effect from the 1st of July. And maybe to bring you up to speed, you can see how I'm dressed. It is part of the theme of the next Rotary year, where we have 3 colors to bring out the theme. We do have purple, and my tie has a purple touch. We do have, and purple is our fight against polio. Rotary has invested and has single-handedly put all efforts in terms of resources, in terms of financial, human, and other resources to ensure that we eliminate polio from the face of the earth. So that is the color purple. Then we have the color white, which is very relevant for this gathering today, and that signifies peace. Rotary is in existence for purposes of ensuring that we do good in the world. And the best good in the world is peace, because peace is an all-encompassing principle. Everything else may not happen where peace is not. So it is a fundamental aspect of the Rotary life. So that is the color of white. Then the green color, which is my jacket, is the environment. You'll appreciate that even without good environment, peace can be compromised. So we are taking it as the 7th area of focus of Rotary, environmental protection. So by planting trees, by preserving the ecosystem, we are creating an enabling environment for sustainable development. So in a nutshell, I've been able to describe my presentation, which reflects to the peace agenda that we are dealing with. So allow me just to thank Madam Helen, the director of the Peace Center. I was part of this process right from the word go. I was in Nairobi, and we had the UN Day in Nairobi, Rotary UN Day, and we had some conversation with Governor Katongole then, who had picked some very good information, and from then on, I've been part of this journey. And currently, I'm a member of the advisory board. So we are very privileged, and we are very proud of what is happening. What was an idea has translated into a very serious agenda, which many of you have helped to actualize. Because if we didn't seek for permission or for opportunity to host the Peace Center, even if we got that opportunity and there were no people interested to come here and partake of the same, definitely the agenda would not come to the level of interest that it has attracted. And being the only one and first ever on the African continent is something good to write home about. So let's give a good round of applause to Madame Helen. And she's representing all the stakeholders at Makerere University, right from the chairman of the board who opened this workshop, this conference, and the teaching staff, and the peace fellows that we have in our midst. I had an opportunity to host a peace fellow in the very first cohort. We are in touch and is doing very well, so we are very proud that we've made a contribution to this agenda. To the peace fellows, you are the reason that the center is in place. Without you, we can't claim to have a center. So we are very proud of you. We are happy that you are taking your performance and engagement very seriously, and sharing your experiences in terms of your peace initiatives is a good way of accounting for your stay in this beautiful place and your own families, because you are out of your homes, you are here for a good reason, and going back with good results and being impactful is something that we must be very proud of. So we are very impressed by the feedback I've got, those that have presented. It is indeed very impressive. Tomorrow I'll make some time out of my busy schedule to again come and participate and be able to follow the presentations as they come about. The different participants at different levels, we appreciate you. You've done good, and you are adding to the body of knowledge in this area, which is very, very critical for the survival of the human race. Because if we don't handle the subject matter of peace well, then you can't be guaranteed of a future of humanity. So at the very bare minimum, we need to give it our attention, our energy, and at the end of the day, in Rotary, we believe in action. Look at a problem, sit down and devise a solution, then finally take action. So as the Peace Center, we are taking action. When you come and you get empowered, when you go back, take action. The multiplier effect of that will have a good effect on our planet Earth. So I don't want to take it beyond that. Once again, Helen and your team and the participants, I wish to thank you for the time you've dedicated today, the energy, the brain power, the ideas you've shared with us. We are truly thankful and grateful for your sharing. Thank you very much for your kind attention and indulgence.
Thank you so much, District Governor Mike Sevalu. As a center, we are very proud because we have the District Governor with us. We have the District Governor nominee designate with us. We have publicity with us. So it can't be any better as far as getting COA to Rotary is concerned. I have the honor to invite the Commandant to just say hello to us, because I know some of us will have interest around security matters. Commissioner, please come and say hello to the team as we close. This morning you saw us having more participants. They were sent from the college. And we would say he's the headmaster of that college, the Senior Command and Staff College in Bwebaja. So Charlie, every conversation we have had before, when you see him, let it make meaning.
Thank you so much. Dr. Helen Nkabala, the director of the Peace Center, the DG-elect, Mr. Sevalu, the presenters of today, the Peace Fellows, I greet you. Dr. Helen has introduced me. I head the Senior Command and Staff College in Bwebaja, where we train our senior police officers. And among the courses that they do of course the command and leadership courses of security nature, but they also do, one of the programs is a one-year program which is intense, that involves a master's in peace and conflict studies, and I'm glad that it's coordinated by Dr. Helen. So all the officers, recently we have had 39 of them finish that program, which is coordinated by Dr. Helen, and it's taught by Makerere University. We have an MOU with them. So I thank you so much for really everybody in this house for participating in global peace. Of course, peace is a collective effort. The academia, the Rotarians, the Peace Fellows, we in uniform, and the community in general. So when we come together on such a platform, it even makes the presentations we have made relevant and real. I thank you so much. Our last presenter, it was quite informative, where you gave us real benchmarks and statistics on global peace and how you arrive at them. I really thank you so much, because it gives a picture of where we are and where we are going and how to even reach there. So I thank you so much, Dr. Helen, for this opportunity to talk to the audience. I must say, much as I'm in uniform, I also am in the academia, and one of my masters is in peace and conflict studies. So This is a great day to be here. Thank you so much.
So thank you so much, friends. I have the honor to say the day is closing on a very good note. We look forward to tomorrow's presentations. We congratulate, actually, past Vice President told us to congratulate you in advance. So we congratulate you all, the 15 that have started, and we wish you the best as you carry on. Thank you very much. The day has closed.